And I mean, I think you're just looking for things to complain about if you watch that show and you come out with like, this guy is putting out fascist propaganda. I mean, it's clearly kind of like, I don't know if it's like a direct critique of any political movement, but
I don't think it's a critique or a
it's like it's a study
it's
on
just
like the human
commentary. Yeah, it's just
condition.
like
Yeah.
he like picked and chose a lot of really important, thematic topics from world history and included them as very intricate and very interesting, subtext in this manga, in this anime. And he did it masterfully, in my opinion. I think he did a fantastic job of making those parallels and really making you think about some of these concepts in a way that wasn't necessarily super prescriptive, right? Like you're kind of left to choose your own side, right? Like when we were texting, you were like, "Oh yeah, I probably would have been a Jaegerist at that point," right? Like I don't know
Oh
if I
yeah,
I
I
don't
did
know if
say
I
that
would,
because
but
it was that me texting you my thoughts. That was like my raw feel. Like that was close. That was the closest to my raw feelings while watching it. I was like, yeah, I
right.
would be. I think I texted that to you while I was still watching. It's like I would definitely be a Jaegerist if I was
Mhm.
born in that society.
Right.
So there's a scene where there's basically Aaron's friends backstab him and they turn on the Jaegerist. And it's like a painful scene.
Mhm.
It's like the most painful scene in the show
Yeah.
for me because they're essentially like turning on their brethren who they were fighting the Titans with, and
Mhm.
now they're actively like killing them. And you're like, man, these fucking traitors, these
Yeah.
fucking race traitors.
But they don't do so lightly either. They do so with extreme trepidation. Like it's a fucking heart-wrenching decision that they make to do this, you know? And as the viewer, you also have to wrestle with that concept. Like if I'm in this situation, do I go ahead and kill my comrades at arms, my best friends, just because they share different political opinions?
Well,
and
I
I
think it wasn't that they share different political opinions. It was that they were going to actively carry out a genocide
Well, yeah,
that
I
they wanted
mean,
to stop.
I'd argue that's a difference of political opinion, just at a greater scale. You know what I mean? Because to the
Well,
people
let
who
me.
were for the Jaegerists, that made sense, right? They were like they felt like they were oppressed. That this is the only way to save our people. They were full throated, drank the Kool Aid, 100%. Nationalists or ethno nationalists or whatever you want to call them. From
Well,
their perspective, that was the correct way to go.
there's a scene where the head Jaegerist is like pleading with them. It's like, please, like, you need to let us carry out this plan because the global alliance is going to kill every single man, woman, and child on
Mm-hmm.
this island if we don't do it. And you know that. And
Mm-hmm.
like, you're thinking like, yeah, man, he's probably right.
Right.
Like they probably are going to suffer like a catastrophe if they don't carry this out.
Right.
So again, it does put you, I think, better than, I don't know if there's like another show that put me in a moral dilemma like this show, where you're like, man, it really, I don't know, I really don't know who to side with on this.
Yeah.
Like who do I sympathize more with? Like, obviously the genocide, carrying out the genocide is, it's going to be morally wrong to 95% of people are like, okay, that's going too far. But then you're like, yeah, but these people have just suffered so much. And like, they're making a
Right.
good point. Like, if I was in their shoes and it was like me against them,
Yeah. You and your
I
children
would,
versus them.
yeah,
Yeah.
me and my children versus everyone else. I would, pick me and my children.
Mm-hmm.
So you completely understand where they're coming from. Um, so it's like, I mean, that's good writing. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Yeah. It
that's
really
really
is.
good writing because they don't, there's like different levels of writing like morally gray characters in like the case of the Game of Thrones. You read Game of Thrones or the Ballad of Ice and Fire or a Song of Ice and Fire, excuse
Mm-hmm.
me. And they George R. R. Martin writes like morally great characters where
Right.
where Jamie, for example, is like the perfect example where he does all this heinous shit, but he has like these redeeming qualities and he has like this redemption arc. However, he's still, even though he has this redemption, the actions that he carries out are horrible. Like there's
Right.
no question about the
They're
actions that he
grossly
carries out are
selfish.
evil.
Yeah.
They're grossly selfish, and there's no like, you're not like seeing, you're not looking at Jamie and you're like, oh yeah, that was like, if I was in Jamie's position, I would have threw out the boy out the window.
Right.
If he saw me, in an incestuous relationship with my sister, I've like, you can't.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
can't
harder to
put yourself
in his shoes.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, he is sorry for what he did, and like you can understand how he came to those decisions, given like the life he lived, but like still the actions that he took were unforgivable. And there's like plenty of other characters in Game of Thrones like that where they've done heinous stuff, but like they're complex, and there's some redeeming things that they've done as well, which makes them complex characters. But in this show, you literally are like thinking like, man, is that action the correct action? Like if I was in my shoes, would I do that? If I was really presented in the us or them type, if I was presented in like that us or them situation, and it's really it's hard to, it's difficult to grasp like what you would do. Like it's difficult to like judge those situations in like the moral context
Right.
when you put yourself in their shoes.
I think the biggest disservice, and where I can see some of the arguments about Isayama promoting fascism in Attack on Titan, is that he doesn't spend he offers a false choice for a solution, right? False choice being like he gives you two options, both of them are bad. You have to pick one or the other. When there's like, I mean, we've talked about it right now. Like there's clearly more options. Um, I think if there's a weakness to this story in terms of if we're arguing about whether or not
Like
this,
the mini genocide was
exactly,
an option.
mini genocide was an option, or you didn't even need to do a mini genocide. You could just do show of force, right? Like I think about this a lot when we think if we've talked about this on the show when we're talking about like whether or not it was morally permissible to drop the nuke on Japan. And we talked a lot about how Japan was going to fall either way. Was it entirely necessary? And the fact that dropping the nuke on Japan was less about making Japan submit and more about flexing on the Soviet Union to make sure that they understood that we've got these bombs and you can't fuck with us, and like stay in line. I think about it that way a lot, and I just think about like, couldn't they have just summoned a shit ton of colossal titans and posted them outside of the country and be like, "Yo, we're having a chat," Or you pointed it out masterfully. It's something I hadn't noticed because it's been a minute since I watched the show, but you're absolutely right. They had one peace talk. That's it. One, right? Like, I mean, with the stakes that high, when the options are, fucking genocide the world to save the Eldians, or don't genocide the world so that you could be genocided against eventually. Like, those are shit options. Like, and especially in the context of like how many conflicts we have right now, like ongoing right now, I think the role of diplomacy really needs to be highlighted more. And I think that's one of the weaknesses of this story, is that maybe it isn't a weakness. Maybe it's just a reflection of reality that we need to be talking more, right? It doesn't have to be this false dichotomy of like kill or be killed. There are
in the
third and
defense,
fourth and fifth options.
In the defense of the Jaegerists, though, they were preemptively attacked at the end.
Yeah. I mean, no one's arguing against defending yourself. At least I'm not.
Like the guy, so how the one guy who was like making that speech, and then he was eaten.
Well,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
when
wasn't
they did
he?
that.
He was an Eldian, and wasn't he arguing to kill the Eldians though?
Yeah, so he was an Eldian, but he was a kind of like
one of those self-hating.
Eldians.
This
is another. Yeah, this is like another historical allegory of like the like the Jew who runs things behind the
scenes.
who runs things behind the scenes.